Welcome, my crafty creatures, to a whirlwind Halloween sewing adventure. In this video, I'm taking on a thrilling challenge, creating 2 fabulous projects in just 3 days. From a hauntingly chic table runner to a bewitching corset top. This is Halloween sewing you won't want to miss. So I'm going to grab my fabric, thread, and a dash of spooky inspiration and dive into the enchanting world of DIY Halloween crafts. Alright, so these are the fabrics that I will be using for my table runner, and both of these fabrics I got from Joann. This is one of their symphony cotton fabric, or actually I believe it's polyester. So it's one of those fabrics. It's one of the cheaper color ones that they have, and this is one of their Halloween fabrics, and I got this a few years ago, so I don't know if they still have that. But if they do, I'll link it in my description so you guys can find it if possible. But this is 100% cotton. This will be my top fabric, and then this will be my underneath fabric. So I've already pre-measured my table, and I came up with about 72 inches by 18 inches wide as far as what I want my table runner to be. So I'm just taking that and I'm marking it out on my fabric and then cutting it out. Now I am adding a little extra detail by cutting off a little bit of an angle on each one of the corners so that it has a unique shape. And I'm just going to repeat this for my top fabric as well as my lining fabric. After getting all the pieces cut the way I want them, I'm going to clip it all together so I can get it ready for the sewing machine. When I clipped it together, I made it sure that the right sides were facing each other, and I am starting with the shorter side. That way when I come back around, I'm going to leave about a 2 to 3 inch opening so that I can actually flip everything right side out. Now that I have everything right side out and I pushed out all the corners, I am going to press everything so that it lays nice and flat, and then I'm going to top stitch everything. For the top stitch, I'm doing about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, and I'm doing this all the way around, making sure that I close up the hole that I left for turning earlier. And now it's ready to be put on the table. As I showed drawing out my design in Infinite Painter, I wanted to show you where I got the inspiration from. And one of the inspirations that kind of sparked this whole project was a video that I saw by Prickly Alpaca on YouTube, and I loved the way her top looked and I wanted to create my own. So of course I went over to Pinterest and I found these 2 versions that I liked elements of. I liked the thick straps of the first one, and the second one, I liked how it had like a little bit of a dip at the bottom. So when I was doing my design, I wanted to make sure that I had those elements. So I made sure that the center part had a little bit of a wider area, and then it got a little lower, and the straps were a little bit wider. Using my design as a reference, it's now time for me to pattern out all of the pieces that I'll need. And I've gathered that I'll probably only need about 3 pieces for this, but I need to make sure that they align the way I want to. So I'm going straight to my mannequin and I'm sketching out all the pieces in their rough form. After I get that rough form, I straighten up the lines so that it makes it easier for me once I cut it out. So once I get that part cut out, I go ahead and do a mock-up of it. And with that mock-up, I see if it actually fits me the way I want it to. And if it has, then I will go ahead and use it in the final fabric. So I have gone ahead and sewed together my mock-up, and I will try it on for you guys so you can kind of see what it looks like. Okay, so this is kind of where we are right now. All right, so it fits me loosely, and that is good because I want to be able to put like a sweater like this underneath it if need be. And the shape seems to be good. So I think I am ready to kind of go to the final fabric. So I think this is turning out really good. And I got a good enough stretch here Let's see. Make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. Yeah, I think it's good. I don't think I need to make any more changes to it. So we can go ahead and cut this out on the final fabric and get to sewing. That's awesome. I'm glad. And this was really easy, and I will be putting some boning in here. I think I might just do this front part, and by boning I don't actually mean like legit boning. I'm using zip ties, and this is just something I wanted to try out just to see how it would end up, because I've seen a couple of videos of people using it, so I wanted to try it just to see what I get with that. But yeah, I'm glad this first version of it came out really well and fits comfortably. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so for this project, these are the two fabrics that I have. And both of these I got from Joann's as well as the other ones. But I saw this, and so many times I've seen just skulls in like gray and black and white. And I like color. If you've seen anything I've done, you would know that. But as soon as I saw this fabric, I was like, I have to have it. And I bought maybe 3 or 4 yards of this. I'm not even sure, but I had no idea what I wanted to make with it until I saw the video, and it just like inspired me to make something with this. And I felt like this would be the perfect fabric for it. And it's something simple enough that I can pair it with a bunch of different things. So I have this cotton fabric, and then I have just like a lining fabric. So that'll be the inner layer, and then this will be the outer layer. And I just can't wait to like finally put all of this together and see everything just in its full glory. But yeah, so here are the fabrics, and I can't wait to like cut all of this out. Okay, now I have all of my pieces cut out, and I'm going to start off with the front pieces and sew those together. So I'm going to match them up with the right sides. And normally I would clip something like this up, but since this is such a small piece, I'm just going to go ahead and take it straight over to the sewing machine and start my stitch. And it's going to be at a 5/8 seam allowance. All right, so now that I have these pieces sewn together, I am going to press them so that both sides of the seam are laying flat. All right, so now you can see that I have both of the pieces pressed, and now I am ready to attach them to the back. So I want to make sure that I have them going to the right side. So I'm going to make sure I put my back fabric right side facing up, and then I will connect the pieces, making sure that I have the right piece for the right side. And I'm just going to line those up and then get ready to sew. Now that I have these pieces sewn together, it's time to take it back over to my ironing board so that I can iron the seams flat. Now that I have all the seams laid flat, I'm going to be adding in my ribbon for the zip ties, and this is what I had on hand. It is a little bit longer than what I need it to be, so what I'm going to do is just sew along the little zigzag in between, and that should give me a piece that's just wide enough to actually fit my zip ties through. So I'm going to cut this to length and then sew it down with just a straight stitch. And to make sure that these ends don't fray while I'm working with it, I am taking a lighter to it and just burning the ends and then just pressing them slightly together, and that usually prevents it from fraying any further. Now that the ribbon is sewn in, I'm going to cut my zip ties down to the right size. Now I'm going to make sure that I curve the edges, that way it doesn't break through the fabric, because this is not a really heavyweight fabric. Now I want to make sure that it's short enough so that it doesn't get in the way of me sewing once I get everything done. Now I'm at a point where I need to put the lining and the outer fabric together, and what I've done is taken a few pins and lined up the seams, and what I'm going to be doing is stitching in the ditch, and that's just doing a straight stitch as close to the seam lines as possible. You want to aim to be within the seam line, but if you get off a little bit, it's okay. This just minimizes that thread being seen from the outside fabric. So here you can see a closer look that even though I got off a little bit, you can barely see that I sewed right there. So this is the look that it gives. So I've gone through and sewn all the seams, but I did forget to do something. I forgot to sew these two ends together, and to do that I'm just going to flip it so that the right sides are facing each other, and then I'm going to do a straight line just straight across there so that I can sew this all together and then flip it right back to the right side. So when I was about to do this, I realized there was something I forgot to do, and that was to add some interfacing for the eyelets once I add those in. So I needed to go and just cut out a little strip of interfacing, and this is just a medium weight interfacing that I've ironed to it. And I went ahead and folded down one of the edges for the fabric just so I know how much space I needed to put that away from the edge. So now that I have all of that together, I can actually sew all of the pieces and get it ready for actually having the zip ties in there. To finish this off, I'm going to have to sew about 1/2 inch from the edge. This should leave a wide enough gap for me to fit the zip ties in. Before I end up adding the fold over elastic, I did take off about 3/8 of an inch around all of the edges just to make it a little bit thinner because it was a little wider than I needed it to be. Now that I have that done, I can take the fold over tape and add it to the fabric. So when it comes to the end, I'm going to be placing it on the front edge, folding it over, and then making sure that I tuck off any of the excess behind that fabric. So I want to be very careful so that you can't really notice it as well. So I'm going to be cutting off one of the edges and then placing it on there and then folding it over to the back side and then putting a pin in the place so that it actually holds it. And then I can actually start sewing this all the way around. Now while I'm sewing this, I am making sure that I pull the elastic a little bit. That way it can lay a little flatter when it's on my body. So now we're at one of the last steps, and this is the part where I add the eyelets in. And to get an idea of where I wanted them to be, I took my ruler and at first I marked off every 1/2 inch, but once I started checking that, I realized that the eyelets would be too close together. So what I did is kind of evenly space them out, and I used 6 eyelets on each side, and I just spaced them out so that they looked like they were far enough apart from each other, but not too far. And because I had already marked everything, I wanted to distinguish where the spots that I actually wanted to put everything. So I put a little cross mark just so that I knew exactly where I was punching those holes out. And now it's time to get the eyelets in there. So what I did to get this in there was I took my awl and punched a hole through the fabric. This made it a lot easier for me to get my scissors into the fabric and actually cut little slits to make the hole a little bit bigger so that I can actually fit the eyelet through. Once I had that done, I would slide the eyelet into place. And once I got that front piece in, I would take the backing pieces, which it had 2 separate parts, and I would take those, slide the kind of clear plastic piece over first, and then slide the other piece, making sure that the ridge was facing upwards. And then I would take it and place it into the setting tool, and then take a hammer and just hammer it down, making sure that I was really firm with the hits that I would take with it. Now it's time to see the final result, and what I did to lace this up is I found some cording, and all I had was a gray color, so I used that as my lace up, and this is what it finally came out to be, and I couldn't be more happy with the way it turned out. Like, this was so much fun for me, and I look forward to making more stuff like this. Stuff that I don't normally have, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for joining me on this magical sewing journey. I hope you're as thrilled as I am with the fabulous Halloween projects that I have created in such a short amount of time. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more creative sewing content, and hit the notification bell so you're the first to know about the next crafting adventure. My next is the last Halloween video where I'll be finishing up some last minute decor and putting together my witch's store window. Until next time, happy sewing and get creepy and get crafting.